All right, so thank everybody for coming. And today we're going to be talking about science and the Bible again, but now we're going to be talking about really atheism versus Christianity, the naturalistic worldview. Some people call it materialism. It really boils down to without God and with God. And we're going to just look at what nature tells us about that. So we're going to start with the song like we have each week. This is I won't guess. I'm going to just play it. We'll figure it out. Let's go ahead and start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for you and for providing us with so much evidence of you, so that no matter where we are in life, no matter what our backgrounds are, we can see things that point to you around us, our world, our universe. Everything points to you. And I'm so thankful, Lord, that you have opened my eyes and the eyes of the people here with us today so that we can see you and everything around you. And I pray this in your name, Lord Jesus, amen. All right, so we have been working through our worldview, and today we're going to finish the last puzzle piece of our worldview, which is science. Specifically, we're going to talk about naturalism. You can call it materialism, you can call it evolutionism, you can call it atheism, all basically synonymous, versus Christianity. And what we want to do is just look at everything and see what does the evidence point to. What evidence do they have for their perspective versus what evidence we say we have for our perspective, and then just let the cumulative case approach be the dictating. Just put it on the scale and see what is the most plausible, what is the most probable. And I think you'll see that the choice becomes real clear. It is the godless religion of naturalism versus God. And there's really no in between. You have to choose one, and there's only two choices in the end. So we'll apply a scientific method, and we'll just let people judge what worldview really makes the most sense. Because we don't have a blind faith. I keep saying this over and over again. Our faith is based on evidence. The question you have to ask, is their faith based on evidence? So I'm going to use this approach. We talked about this when we did the design argument, the different levels of existence. And we're going to look at each level and see, what does it point toward? What is the most probable, plausible explanation for what we see? Any questions? We will kind of run a little long today. Since Drenda's not here, I won't rush as much as I was going to, because there's some videos that are just, it's too amazing not to see. And so we'll take a little time to make sure we get through it well. So the universe, you have a couple of choices. And this is what people talk about. And they'll throw this at us every time, that we use God of the gaps anytime we don't understand something. Well, we don't understand it, it must be God. And you'll hear this over and over again. God of the gaps, God of the gaps. This is the big argument that the naturalist, atheist always uses against us. But they use time of the gaps or randomness of the gaps. They have gaps in their understanding, things that they can't put together. And guess what? They don't know. And they'll say, well, if you have enough time, we'll figure it out. Or if you're given enough time, well, these things have to take place because the laws of physics and mathematics say it will, which they don't. Or they'll say, okay, everything is completely random. Eventually, our existence has to happen because if everything is infinite, then obviously this is just one of the possibilities. I'm going to show you where these arguments don't work. They're just as big an argument of the gaps as they accuse us of, God of the gaps. And in fact, their time of the gaps and randomness of the gaps actually don't work within their own theories and their own explanations. So we'll walk through it. So let's look at the universe first. And I showed you some of this, I think, a couple weeks ago. This is the Webb telescope as it's zooming in on some part of the universe. There's not a single scientific theory that the Webb telescope has affirmed. You heard me right. As they dive deeper and deeper, they have to rethink the theories, they have to rethink the mathematics, because it shouldn't look like this. What you see is pretty clear points of light, which is not what you would expect. Things like Newtonian physics, theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, none of them explain what they see in the universe. Yeah, well, that's another thing. It's like, okay, that's a spiral galaxy and another galaxy. Why are there only a couple kinds of galaxies if randomness is one of the theories? There are unique, discrete characteristics about our universe. Well, that sounds like design to me, not randomness. And I think one of the things that they often accuse us of is this idea that we don't understand, right? That religion is a crutch for us to understand what's going on. Before we go on, I want to just show you a couple quick object lessons as you kind of look at early pretty pictures. So a really classic argument, they'd say, this is the Christian sticks and stones. This is avocado. The pit of the avocado is a stone, right? You can crush it up and make ink. So you can make ink, sticks is paper. I should be able to set this someplace and eventually, you know, a simple book like maybe the one I wrote should come out, right? It's probably not a very fair demonstration, I'll be honest. And the atheists don't like it when I do this. In fact, they will comment and complain. So, okay, forget about the sticks and stones for a second. How about ink and paper? If I was to set these things next to each other, they're already ready. This is everything that goes into that book. Would they ever become the book? Could I throw them up in the air and they become a book? Give it time. If I gave it time, the ink would go bad or the paper would deteriorate, right? So time doesn't work. Randomness doesn't work. They don't like this example either. And they're probably right. This is probably a little disingenuous. It's not really what happens. This is a raw piece of unbleached paper. This is everything you need to make this piece of paper. Okay? It doesn't have to be anything special. So is there any way this could ever become this randomly? Is there any amount of time that you could set it down? Why is that? Well, not just that. This is going to deteriorate with time. Okay? Time doesn't work. Okay? So the raw materials, and I want you to keep this example in your mind. The raw materials to make something like life have a shelf life. They can only last so long. So even if they could be made, they have to get to this before they deteriorate from this. And we know from looking at this example, there's no way this is going to become this without an intelligent designer intervening. I can turn this into this. I grind this up, put it in a water slurry, press it on a screen, and then I put a hot iron on this to press it, and I can make this paper. I did this in graduate school. It's not complicated, but it takes the direction of an intelligent agent. There's no way randomly it would ever take place. You can imagine thousands of possibilities. There is no infinite time, no infinite randomness.
No, but we know how it's being done as a paper.
Yeah.
We know it's a fact that you make it.
You make it. But is there any equivalent in nature?
No.
There isn't. So keep that in mind a little bit. I won't take it all the way to the book, but just rudimentary. This is just rearranging components that exist. This is not changing components. I take the cellulose out of the stick and I can make paper. I don't have to change the cellulose into a living cell to make the paper. It is literally just a physical change. No chemical change needed. If I have a chemical change, then it doesn't work at all, right? So just kind of think about that as we go through. So at the universe level, at least, they can't explain it. They'll throw up their hands and they'll say, I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery. It is not a mystery to us. We believe that there is order. There's design. There must be a designer. Okay, so let's take a step back. Let's look at just our galaxy for a minute. This is not the Milky Way, but it's a spiral galaxy called M101, I think it is. It looks like the Milky Way galaxy, or at least what we think the Milky Way. We live in it, so we don't really know what it looks like. This is what they think the Milky Way looks like. We live in what they call the Goldilocks zone. It's a very specific location relative to the center of our galaxy, moving at the right speed. It's the surrounding stars are exactly the right size to give us the exact right configuration so that we can exist. And we know from what science has observed and how they've tested, you have to have very precise location for life to have a possibility, at least any life that we're aware of. So that's at the galaxy level. Again, it looks like very precise design. If you were to ask an atheist scientist, why is there a Goldilocks zone? You know what their answer is going to be? I don't know. It's a mystery. Do we know? Yeah, we believe God put us there. Okay, they can disagree with us, but they have absolutely no evidence for their perspective. None. So now we're going to look at the solar system. Our solar system is amazing. We have what they call a habitable zone, which, if you notice, Earth falls right in the middle of it. People have tried to extend the habitable zone to Mars, but they have to redefine what it is. It's a reason nothing lives on Mars. There's a reason nothing lives on Venus. Our planet is in the only place in our solar system where life as we know it could possibly exist. End of story. And there's not a scientist that will disagree with that. At least not one that actually is doing science. People can imagine things, but science. What's observable is you have to be in this zone. The question is why? Well, you ask them, their answer is, I don't know. Luck. So that's not evidence. You look at our solar system a little closer, and obviously this is not perfectly to scale. God designed our solar system with cosmic vacuum cleaners, these big gas planets out here. They basically pick up all the debris so Earth is not bombarded with space junk. The location of the inner planets affects the way our orbit works. The solar system is so finely tuned for us to maintain a life-giving environment that it looks like it was done on purpose. And if you ask scientists, they'll tell you, I don't know. They'll say what they do. They won't disagree with what I just said about the gas planets or the inner planets, but they won't understand why. It's just luck. It just happened this way. We are just fortunate. But you hear those words. Those are faith words. They're not evidence words. They have faith that it wasn't God because they don't want it to be God. They believe it must have happened naturally, even though they can't explain it because, well, they want it not to be God. God can't be an option to them. They have to have extreme faith in their godless religion of atheism because they have no evidence for what it is they're claiming. Look at the solar system a little closer, and again, this is just a graphic. Solar system's made out of the sun and planets and moons and asteroid belts and what they call dwarf planets now, Pluto and Makemake and Sirius and all these unusual large asteroid things. But we also have something they call comets. The comets are very interesting. This is a picture of Halley's Comet from 1986. You familiar with Halley's Comet? It comes every 75 years. I might live to see it again. We'll see. There's an interesting thing about Halley's Comet. It loses about 50 metric tons of material every second as it approaches the sun. And we know from looking at it that it's in this nighttime sky for that's months, like maybe 6 months. So for 6 months, every second, it loses tremendous amount of material. That's what the tail is. So the question you have to ask, why is it still there? If the universe is billions and billions of years old, and the solar system is billions of years old, even millions of years old, how is that even possible? And we know they deplete, because every time Halley has come back in the modern era, we know it gets dimmer and dimmer. I've seen some comets myself, and they do. They get dimmer with time. And actually, as they get closer and closer to the sun, you can see they get the tail gets longer. That doesn't go back to the comet. That's gone to the universe. So we know they don't replenish themselves, because we can observe that with science, that comets always diminish over time. So if the universe is millions and millions of years old, why do I have comets? You ask a scientist that, most of them will say, I don't know. Well, we know, because we know someone actually placed it there. Now, they have some inventive theories. They have a theory called the comet birthing location. Hey, this is real astronomy here. They've never observed it. They've never seen it. There is no evidence of comets being regenerated. There's none. But that is common science today. So does it take more faith? Is it more faith to believe that comets are birthed someplace in the universe and never have understood that? Or does it make more sense that someone created it? I mean, I think it takes more faith to imagine something as a fact that should be observable, but no one's ever observed it. And we have telescopes. You saw the Webb telescope. You can see far into the universe now. This is just an excuse for not understanding. They'll say, oh no, they formed later. It's like, okay, give me your theory and then let's test it against observation. Well, yeah. But the point is, they have faith and imagination. They're very smart people. They're very smart. These are very imaginative solutions, but they don't hold up to the scientific method. They cannot be observed, they cannot be tested, and there's absolutely no data to support the perspective. There's wishful thinking. So again, which is more obvious? Something that's obviously highly designed. I mean, comets are amazing. The whole concept of how they work and they still come back in orbit, the best astrophysicist still kind of shakes their head. I mean, they don't understand what a 75-year orbit or 125-year orbit, how's that even possible? And the fact that the comets seem to disappear into deep space because they don't have a tail anymore, so it's just a tiny rock by galactic perspectives flying into dark space. They kind of lose track of them, so they don't really know. So their answer is, I don't know. What's our answer? Well, I think we know, okay? I mean, whether you believe in a young Earth or an old Earth, it doesn't really matter. We believe God created it this way for a purpose, and that's... but if we have comets, that's really difficult for the naturalists to deal with. Let's look at another galactic... This is, again, the Webb telescope. I love these things. As you kind of look, as it zooms in, I can buy that it kind of looks random, maybe, sort of. But what I can't figure out is if the universe is billions and billions of years old, why are there still stars? They calculate the expected life of our sun at somewhere around, I think I'm not, it's like 5 million years or something like that. I better look it up so I get it right. Yeah, so they think our sun's life expectancy was about 10 billion years with about 5 billion or so remaining. The universe is hundreds of billions of years old. So I look at the stars and I'm like, okay, so why are they still there? They'll say, oh, they formed later. there's no evidence that we have of a star forming. They have all kinds of nebulas and things where they say that's a star in making. That's the new theories you'll hear, but there's no evidence of that. You would think in the vastness of space there'd be some place where we would have looked and suddenly there's a star. But there's zero, not a single observed case. Now, smart men can imagine very imaginative things, but that is not evidence. What we see is we see supernovas, we see stars disappear. That happens. But other than getting better telescopes so we can see deeper into space, no one has ever seen a star come into being. So which is evidence? Well, it looks like God must be doing something. Now, there are people that will say there is a location somewhere in the universe where stars are born. And believe it or not, if you read an astronomy book, they'll talk about a star birthing location somewhere in the universe. And I get it. It's a very imaginative solution, but it's science fiction. It's not science. And believe it or not, as Christians, we believe that too. We believe there's a place where stars are born. But that place is God, right? God is the entity that places them into the universe from outside the universe. So their theories I find very interesting because they tend to really walk a fine line between their having to be a creator for their ideas to work. They talk about things being made, things being birthed. That language sounds like somebody doing something, not randomness or time. They use the language of creation to make their theories sound more believable, but their theories are still, close my eyes and then it's going to be there, right? Peekaboo, and there's a star. So, so that's kind of the big scale, right? And I went really fast because I want to get to the really fun stuff, so as we get to Earth, their excuses of not being able to observe and see things kind of seems to change. When you talk about deep space, they can say, "Oh, we just have not seen it yet. We don't have the capabilities to see what we are saying is happening." But now we're on Earth. We're here. We live here. We don't have that excuse anymore. And our planet is just amazing, what God has created for us. And we were talking about it the other day. It's like, think about just the oxygen level on Earth. In industrial practices, if the oxygen level varies by like 1%, like 19.5 to like 20, 21 and 0.9 or 0.5, I can't remember. That little difference in the percentage of oxygen is considered unhealthy, dangerous for life and health. How is oxygen produced on Earth? Plants, right? So Earth has to have the perfect balance between plant and animal. If there are too many plants, what would happen to the oxygen level? It would go up. If there's too many animals, what would happen to the oxygen level? It would go down. That balance is so finely tuned. I mean, 1% is like nothing. If you breathe into a cup, you've already violated that. What?
Even us mucking with the system.
Well, and that doesn't take into account volcanic eruptions.
No,
Or
we kill those animals to eat them.
we kill the animals, we kill the plants.
I mean, we don't balance them, we just do it.
We just do it. Yet,
And God sustains.
but something like the oxygen level maintains. And you ask a scientist, what maintains the balance?
Mother Earth.
You know what the answer is you'll get? We don't know. We can tell you the mechanism, but we can't tell you how it is regulated. Because the mechanism is just the mechanism. This is just chemistry and physics. If it was just chemistry and physics, it wouldn't work. I mean, I'm telling you, if we burn down forests, that area should be depleted of oxygen, yet it's not. Okay, localized concentrations can happen. We talk about ozones and all this other stuff, But oxygen that we breathe, carbon dioxide that the trees use is very regulated. And regulated by what? There's some theories out there, I'll be honest, I don't want to be disingenuous, but the theories are not testable and they have not been proven, and that's just the reality. So they can believe that everything that happens on Earth happens randomly, which takes a lot of faith, or you can believe that it is designed for life by a designer, which actually it's what you observe. Because if you have design, you got to have designer. It's like the paper. I mean, you can't imagine that it would happen on its own. It's just not, there's nothing that you'd look at in the natural world that happens just on its own. It takes facilitation of a living creature of some sort. I mean, it just does. All right, so